I'm here to talk Billy Joe Saunders versus Chris Eubank 2, the rematch. Worth noting, first and foremost, this fight hasn't actually been ironed out. It hasn't been officially announced. As far as we know, contracts haven't been signed, etc. We do understand the major update is coming from Queensberry Promotions and Box Nation this week. So it could well be that. It could well relate to Fury Klitschko. Who knows? Anyway, in terms of the current state of play, Andy Lee was supposed to fight Billy Joe Saunders. Andy Lee is out with an injury, supposedly. Billy Joe Saunders has an opportunity to fight for the WBO interim title. Chris Eubank is an approved opponent for the WBO interim title. It's clearly the biggest money matchup out there, and Chris Eubank has the WBA interim title. So it's kind of a bizarre unification fight for two interim titles. Clearly, that isn't the main motivator for having this. It's the money it would generate. Summer Stadium Showdown. Perhaps we'd be looking at July, August. I think I've heard Frank Warren mooting West Ham as a potential venue for this fight to happen at. Just bear with me for one moment. Sorry about that. So I'm assuming this fight is going down. If it doesn't happen, then I'm going to waste 10 minutes or so talking about it here. But, you know, I'll get over it. I want to see this fight. For me, the first fight was a very entertaining matchup. It was a brilliant clash of styles, and it was a super entertaining build-up. And a genuine 50-50 fight, which is a rare commodity in this day and age. I saw improvements that could be made for both guys. For Billy Joe, I felt he faded. I think he started extremely strong and faded towards the end of the fight. Is there potential stamina concerns there? For Chris Eubank Jr., the issues in my mind were technical. The fact that he didn't try and jab his way in. The fact that he was very defensively open. The fact that he didn't deal with Saunders' early movement and slick southpaw jab as well as one would hope. Now, both guys have come out with reasons why they may improve this time round. Billy Joe, he's saying he didn't think that Chris Eubank was ever going to turn up to fight in their first match. He's saying that, you know, with Eubank constantly playing games with press conferences, he kind of got himself in a mindset that the fight wouldn't happen and thus was undermotivated when training. Yeah, this time round he's got Eubank's O. He knows Eubank's going to turn up for the rematch. He knows Eubank wants the rematch, so we're going to get a fully motivated Billy Joe. With Chris Eubank Jr., you know, it was a huge step up in class very quickly for him. He's now got the experience of sharing a pro ring with someone like Billy Joe Saunders for 12 rounds. In addition to that, he's also been in another decent fight, Dmitry Chudinov, and performed with some credit and shown some boxing improvements there. So who do I think is going to win? Well, let me say, I actually think that this is a tighter fight than the first time round when these guys matched up. You know, I very confidently predicted Billy Joe Saunders in that fight. I did a number of videos leading up to it, and I really thought Billy Joe was going to be dominant. The main reasons were that it was too much too soon for Chris Eubank Jr. He'd never gone the distance over 12. He'd never fought anyone with the level of Billy Joe Saunders in terms of movement, experience, boxing capability. Going into this fight, those same concerns don't exist. You know, Eubank Jr. has gone, I think he stopped Chudinov in the 12th, but he's gone to the 12th round twice in his last two fights. He perhaps has shown that he doesn't have Gennady Golovkin style power, but he's shown he's got an excellent chin, excellent heart, excellent will to win, and slightly improved boxing basics. With Billy Joe, concerns about his stamina and fading late still exist. However, I think he's also shown that even though he does maybe fade later in fights, he still does enough to hang on. You know, he doesn't let himself get stopped. He's still active enough to, you know, win rounds in the second half of the fight. Now, in the Dmitry Chudinov fight, and Chudinov is a far inferior technician to Billy Joe Saunders, I still felt Eubank was technically deficient. There were some improvements, a bit better boxing, a bit better movement, etc. But I thought he was very open defensively. Now the difficulty here is as follows. If you watch Mayweather-Pacquiao, or if you watch Klitschko-Jennings, both Pacquiao and, to an extent, Klitschko were put off their normal techniques, which was aggressive power punching, because of the movement of their opponent. Put simply, the athleticism, the movement, the skill sets of Bryant Jennings and of Floyd Mayweather prevented these fighters, who are usually aggressive, attacking fighters, from putting in their normal performances. I see the same with Chris Eubank Jr. and Billy Joe Saunders. You know, Eubank Jr. is a fighter who looks absolutely devastating in the majority of his fights. But even including Dmitry Chudinov, these are fighters who stand in front of him. They don't move side to side, they don't slip shots, they don't have head movement. You know, for me, that's the problems that Billy Joe caused him in the early rounds. You know, Eubank Jr. was not used to dealing with someone with the speed, elusiveness, defence, and all-round capability of a Billy Joe Saunders. You know, he was so used to just walking into opponents and bulldozing them that he didn't really know how to respond and how to adjust when Saunders was at his best, and when Saunders was, you know, fully energised, throwing a jab and boxing in his typical technical fashion. For me, Eubank's only success came when Saunders started to tire, and perhaps the movement and the defence was less sharp than it had been early on in the fight. The difficulty is, in the early rounds here again, I find it hard to see that Eubank has made the boxing improvements and adjustments to win the early rounds of Billy Joe Saunders. For me, Billy Joe is a semi-elite technician, and I just don't think that Eubank has the defensive capability and the sort of boxing skill to win the early rounds here. I think Billy Joe's going to start off with his southpaw stance, throwing the jab, moving, and really outboxing Chris Eubank Jr. And I think if Billy Joe comes in fitter and having had a better training camp, if we buy that excuse, and that's a debate, but I think if he does, then, you know, potentially Eubank Jr. is going to struggle to win any of the first half of the fight. But Eubank Jr. is a very, very good fighter when he's allowed to dominate you, when he's allowed to tee off with shots. But against an elusive, moving opponent, he really, really struggles. He really struggles. I feel that is the way to beat him, is to outbox him. Now, Eubank, we know, is going to still be there in the 12th round. Billy Joe's not going to knock Eubank out. Eubank's going to still be there throwing power shots. And if Billy Joe is, you know, fades like he did previously, then he's going to be vulnerable. But Billy Joe's an excellent heart, excellent durability, and a superb chin. And he clearly knows how to survive in a fight, even when it's getting tough at the end. So whilst I see this as a more competitive fight than first time round, I really don't see enough from Eubank Jr. to suggest he's made the necessary improvements to beat Billy Joe Saunders. Particularly if we factor in that Billy Joe Saunders could potentially be 5, 10, 15% better, yeah, if he can make improvements to his training camp. The positives for Eubank is that he's now got that experience under his belt. He's proved that he has got a good chin. He's proved that he's capable of winning fights over the 12-round distance. But for me, the negatives are still a lack of technical capability, a potential for not making the weight correctly, potential for not listening to his trainer, you know, and that sort of thing. And there's still a lot of concerns that are in my head about Chris Eubank Jr. For me, I'll be looking forward to this fight. I think it's really tight, and I could concede that Chris Eubank Jr. could possibly cause the upset this time. I don't rule him out in this fight, and I did rule him out in the last fight. But for me, it would still be a strong prediction for Billy Joe. Because I think if Billy Joe comes in at his best, which I fully expect him to for a fight of this magnitude, I just do not think that Chris Eubank Jr. is going to live with his boxing skill in the first half of the fight. And I think that whilst Chris Eubank Jr. may come on strong and look the better fighter when it gets to round 12, I think Billy will have enough in the tank to still be there to keep fighting. And I think Billy will have won enough rounds early on to get the job done. For me, I really don't buy a Chris Eubank Jr. excuse. You know, that he started slowly to make sure he'd last the distance last time round. I think it's that when Billy was fully energised and fully fit, Eubank just couldn't deal with the movement and technique that he possessed. And this happens when you face slick, elusive fighters or athletic movers. I'm not classing Billy Joe in the same league as Floyd Mayweather or even Bryant Jennings for that matter. But you get a guy like Vladimir Klitschko who can look devastating when allowed to throw power punches and dictate the movement of a fight. And suddenly he looks less devastating when he's up against a mover like Bryant Jennings. You get a guy like Manny Pacquiao who's the ultimate aggressive fighter, and suddenly he's made to look one-paced, route one, against an elite defensive operator and technician like Floyd Mayweather. Well, for me, whilst Billy Joe doesn't represent Floyd Mayweather, doesn't represent Bryant Jennings, Chris Eubank Jr. is also a lesser fighter than Manny Pacquiao and Vladimir Klitschko. And I think we can learn something from those fights about really, really aggressive punchers coming in against slick, defensive, moving operators. I think Billy Joe's got the technique to win the early rounds, and I think he's got the heart to stay the distance. I don't rule Chris Eubank Jr. out. I've seen some improvements from him, and he's got experience under his belt. It's a great fight. I'm really looking forward to it. But I'm siding with Billy Joe Saunders yet again. Thanks for watching. As always, please do let me know your thoughts.